This is a story about a very cool experience I just had, and I think that there's a lesson in here on how people can use social media and really get more benefit beyond just superficial likes and comments and things like that. So first, my name is Chad. I work in industrial real estate, and I've been on Twitter, or X as it's now called, since 2009, and I've been fortunate to have made a number of great connections on there. And one thing I always try to do is to meet people in person when I can. And this recent event I went to, I knew one of the people already that I had met also through social media, and I got invited by a guy named Ken Ashley, who's a ultra successful commercial real estate broker in Atlanta, works for a large brokerage firm. He's also the founder of CRE, which puts on the summit every year, and there's another one coming up this year as well. And him and I have been connected on Twitter for quite some time, but we'd never met in person. And I got an invite to go to a quail hunting event in Atlanta. So without hesitation, I jumped on a plane. It was a long flight because I'm on the other side of North America. And it was so long, actually, that when I got there, I won an award for all the people that were there. I had the longest distance traveled. So I knew it was already off to a good start when I won an award for that. When I pulled up to the house, it's an amazing property. It's one of the most impressive types of properties I've ever been to, and I'm going to get into the story on exactly what it was, but the main house where we had dinner, also used for weddings and all sorts of different events. This is actually part of a 1,000-acre property that's used for quail hunting, and there's 250 members. I believe it's the 8th generation of family that now owns and runs this property, and 250 members owned under that single family since 1809, and there's all sorts of things on there, mostly quail hunting and skeet shooting. But as we got in and as I arrived, there was a full itinerary. First thing we did was have an amazing dinner. It was absolutely spectacular. After the dinner, we had a group photo, and you might recognize some of the people that are already in here. Right after dinner, we went and checked into our cabin, and the cabin itself was really impressive as well. A big, large open area, and then we all had our own private rooms and private washrooms. And then outside was a massive outdoor fire pit where we had cigars and bourbon until wee hours of the evening. The next morning we got up and we did clay pigeon shooting, which, if you're not familiar with it, is you're basically shooting orange clays with a shotgun. I've done this before, so I was somewhat familiar with it, but there were all skill levels there. There were some people that were expert shooters, Ken being one. His son Jonathan was also another amazing shooter. But that was really cool to do that in a different place. And if you've ever been clay shooting, this particular one and another one that I've been to, it's actually set up like a golf course where you go course to course and you shoot at different things, and the clays are coming in at different speeds or different trajectories, and it's really fun. And then we got to drive around in this turbocharged golf cart, which was of course pretty cool as well. The next event that we had after another spectacular meal for lunch was we drove around in this cart, which took us to the actual outdoor area for the quail hunting. And you can see a group picture before we left. We're wearing all orange. It's kind of a safety thing because none of us want to end up in a situation like Dick Cheney found himself in, where he was also quail hunting at the time. So I learned a lot about this. I'd never been quail hunting before, but there's a guide who goes with 2 hunters at any given time, and the guide's responsible for directing 3 dogs actually. There were 2 dogs that their specific role was to run around and try and find these quail. And once they found one, they would pause and point at it so the guide knew that there was one nearby. The guide would bring the 2 hunters up, and then when they were ready, he'd send another dog in called a flusher dog, and the flusher would run and hopefully scare the quail so that it flies up, and then that's when you want to shoot it. These quail, it's put and take hunting, so these quail are raised in a pen and then they're put into the field, and these quail are pretty stupid, so quite often we actually saw that they wouldn't even move and the dogs just ate them. But when they did pop up, it was pretty interesting to shoot at a moving target that in bird form as opposed to just an orange clay. Really fun. I've never done anything like it. It was a fascinating experience. Here's a group photo of us. We shot 45 in total. The state law in Georgia is that you can't eat what we actually cooked. So I don't know what happens to them after that. Maybe someone can fill me in on what that is if you happen to know. But they still did have other game and quail that was on the menu that was just brought in from other places. And one of the highlights for dinner that night was getting to meet the owners, Sandy and Betsy Morehouse. Here's Betsy telling a story to all of us about some of the strong women that were involved in the lineage of ownership for this property, and she was one of the best storytellers I've ever listened to. If you could see me in this picture, I was captivated. I was so enthralled with how great of a storyteller she was. Next morning, that evening, actually, I should back up. Of course, we had more cigars, we had more bourbon. I'm a sucker for both of those, and when you're with a group of people that all love that as well, it was awesome. Next morning, I got to drive around the small industrial park in the area, and they needed it for repairing vehicles, repairing equipment, anything that broke down. There's storage, there's all sorts of things in there. Some people might say that these look like barns, but I think people just see what they want to see. And then I also won another award. I won an award for almost nearly a Top Gun, which means I came in third, which I'm pretty happy with. Austin, an awesome guy from Texas, not Austin the city, his name is Austin. He came in second. And Nick Huber, some of you might know him as a Sweaty Startup. He won first place. And some people might not like Nick, but I've interviewed him on my podcast before, and getting to spend a couple days with him, I can say emphatically that he is a super cool guy. Really fun to be around. Look really different lens on how he looks at business, and I was really captivated by him and others. There's just such a great group of guys. Ken, as I mentioned, I'm a huge fan of Ken's. His son Jonathan was a great guy. One guy in particular that I was really anxious to meet was Coy Davidson. You probably know him on Twitter as the tenant guy. Actually, I can't even remember his handle, as embarrassing as that is. But Coy and I have been connected for probably 15 years on Twitter now, and we had talked back and forth, and we've had numerous conversations, but that was the first time that I got to meet him in person. Frost Chima, Mr. Worldwide, was here. He's got a great presence on LinkedIn, and he started on Twitter recently and has already grown a great profile. And then Bob Knackel, after talking to him numerous times, to meet him in person was also super cool. So what I take away from all this, and what I'd really encourage you to do, and what I'm going to try and double down on, is use social media as a means to meet people virtually with the intent that you will eventually want to meet up with them in person. And I've done it where if I travel into other cities, I look up people that I might know in that city based on if I've talked to them on social media, and I try to meet them in person. And I've probably met 20, 30 people over the years this way. And you really solidify your relationship with people once you already have some background with them, talking and sharing things on social media. And when you meet them in person, the comment that I said regularly, and I heard other people say, is that we felt like we knew each other for years. And through social media we did, but there's a different relationship with doing it in person. So what I want to do myself, and what I'm going to embrace, and it'd be a suggestion I'd have for you, is start interacting with more people online, on social media. It could be people with a common interest. I'm in industrial real estate, so it makes sense to be talking with other people that have a passion for industrial real estate, or even commercial real estate broadly, or even real estate or business, and just find people that you resonate with. No different than going to a networking event and seeing a group of people, or perhaps seeing one person by themselves. You can't just expect to show up and all of a sudden be ingrained in the conversation and be part of that group. You have to take a little bit of initiative. So I would follow some of the key people on Twitter: Ken, Coy, Nick, Bob, I hope I'm not missing anybody. Jonathan has a Twitter account as well. Follow some of the people that are active in real estate and go beyond just following them, but actually start engaging with them. Perhaps it's something as simple as liking one of their posts or commenting on it, or perhaps sharing something with them if you thought it was of interest. If you came across an interesting article in Atlanta, which wasn't public or broad news, or perhaps it was a little bit niche, and you sent that to someone like Ken, who's active in Atlanta, all of a sudden you start getting on their radar in a positive way. And I think that's a key as well, is that you really need to be positive on social media. Nobody wants to be talking or spending energy or time dealing with people that are negative or trying to detract from the situation. No different than that person wouldn't be very popular at a party if they went and started complaining and arguing and getting into dumb arguments. They're not going to be welcomed at the party for very long. So treat it very much the same as you would in a group setting, but realize that you can connect with people all over the world for free with very little effort other than showing an interest in what other people are doing and taking a long-term approach. Like I said with Koi and I knew each other for probably 15 years before we actually connected in person. And that might be an extreme case, but take that long-term approach that you're not trying to just reach out to somebody, peppering them with boilerplate garbage DMs. You're actually trying to build a relationship, no different than if it was in real life. And another cool thing that's come from this, sort of wrapping it all up, is that I'm fortunate to go to the X Gala in New York this coming April. Bob's hosting it, as well as Strip Mall Guy. They did one last year, and I'm honored to be invited to one this year. Again, that wouldn't have happened if I wasn't actively participating in social media. So that's probably a long way of spelling out this story on how I got to do this really cool trip to Atlanta to go quail hunting, something that I would never have had the opportunity to do had it not been for Twitter and social media. So I'd encourage you just to embrace the potential that it has, take a long-term outlook with it, start engaging with people, and realize that people want to engage with you as well. If you've had some cool opportunities, or if you've met some great people, or perhaps done business as a result of social media, I'd love to hear if you have any stories on that as well. And I appreciate you listening to this short story, and look forward to catching you in the next video. Thanks.